When I moved to this area in 2016, I had the privilege for the first year of being minister at Alton Methodist Church. Liz was appointed as lay worker and she carried the majority of the responsibility. But I would travel from Farnborough to Alton once a month on a Sunday to lead worship, to chair the church councils and to attend a small number of other meetings. I remember my first evening meeting well. It must have been late September or early October. It was what the writer of a novel might describe as a dark and stormy night. When I left the meeting, the rain was torrential. I got in the car and drove towards the A31, only to find that the road was closed overnight for repairs. I was new to the area and the detail of the geography wasn't yet imprinted on my mind. Earlier that day I'd been looking at the road map at home and I'd forgotten to put the road map back into the car. I had a sat-nav, but the sat-nav spent the time trying to correct what it thought was my mistake and return me to the main road. Diversion signs on that dark and stormy night seemed few and far between, but eventually I found my way to the B road under the A31 travelling out towards East Worldham. The person in the car behind clearly knew that route better than I did and drove quite fast and quite close behind me, so that even when I did suddenly glimpse an opportunity to pull in and to gather my thoughts, it wouldn't have been safe to try and attempt that manoeuvre. And so I drove on, but eventually found my way back to Farnham, and from there I knew my way home, but it was certainly a memorable journey. I didn't have a map. The sat-nav was telling me fake news, and how good it would have been to have someone travelling with me to help me to find the way. In our Gospel reading for this Sunday, which comes from John's Gospel chapter 14, we find one of those powerful I am sayings of Jesus. Jesus has been talking to a group of his closest friends about the fact that soon he will be going to his Father's house, and he tells them that they know the way to that place. Thomas, one of that group of the closest friends of Jesus, puts into words what perhaps every single one of them is thinking at that moment when he says to Jesus, "Lord, we do not know where you are going, so how can we know the way?" And it is to this question of Thomas that Jesus replies, "I am the way and the truth and the life." We can read those words of Jesus as referring to three equal statements. I am the way, and I am the truth, and I am the life. But biblical scholars tell us that it's possible to read that statement of Jesus in such a way that the second and third statements are, if you like, an explanation of the first. So that what Jesus is actually saying here is, I am the way, and that is a way which is all about truth, and it's all about life. It's an interesting point of Greek grammar, perhaps. But whichever way we understand those words of Jesus, it is clear that the phrase, I am the way, as the first of the three terms used, is intended to be the most important. Jesus doesn't say to Thomas that he'll let him borrow a map, or even say to Thomas that if he just sits a moment, he will give him directions for the route to take. Instead, Jesus speaks simply of himself as the way. I am the way, he says. And we are called to hear those words today, because if we want to know the route that we should take in our lives, we need to walk closely with Jesus. Because to walk with Jesus is to be close to the one who not only knows the way, but who is the way. I'm sure in these lockdown days it won't have escaped your notice that the weather has been rather nice and sunny outside. Indeed, you may have read, as I did just a day or two ago, that it's been the sunniest April in the UK since records began. And yet in the midst of this sunny weather, we travel through indeed what is a dark and stormy night. A night far worse than the one I experienced on that journey home from Alton, from that first evening meeting. We wonder when the storm will end. We're perhaps unsure about the direction we should take as a country. as a church or even as individuals. In these stormy and uncertain times, the words of Jesus, "I am the way," have a special power and a particular message for us. To stay close to Jesus means that we are called to make time to pray, to make time to read and reflect on the Bible, and to find time also to be a community of God's people as we share together in worship and fellowship through various electronic means, as we use the various printed resources of devotional material that are made available for us, and as we speak to one another and encourage one another on the telephone. For being a follower of Jesus, even in these strange lockdown days, is not a journey that we are intended to travel alone. We can see this in the Acts of the Apostles. Luke, the author of that record of the early years of the church, describes Christians using various terms. Luke tells us that they are those who follow the way of salvation, or on another occasion that they are those who follow the way of the Lord or the way of God. But on 6 occasions in the Acts of the Apostles, Luke describes those first Christians simply as the way. It's a reminder that as we respond to Jesus, we are called, each of us, to a daily journey of discipleship. That journey may indeed take us down roads that we never imagined travelling along, but it's a journey that we do not take alone. As we travel through the dark and stormy night of the current world, we can know that we travel with others who are also part of the way, and together with them we follow Jesus. Jesus who will guide us, Jesus who will guard us, Jesus who speaks to us all still today, saying, "I am the way. Come with me." Amen.